Good morning, good morning, good morning again, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, the usual disclaimers. To start off with, if you are new to this channel, all the pertinent links when it comes to the Stop the Shocks campaign can be found in the description box. Most noteworthy in there, you are going to find a report done by NeuroClastic where they interviewed over 900 ABA professional individuals in regards to the JRC. An article that the JRC felt so threatened by, they threatened them with a defamation lawsuit. So please read the article as well as the other links in there. We also included their public statement in regards to the threat as well as their GoFundMe. We also included the links in regards to the Agape boarding school situation. Please read those. All right, folks. When we talk about places like Agape and the JRC, you're going to see articles of and clips of surveillance footage of peoples with disabilities and mental health issues being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones. Then, trigger warning, this channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. So, if your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, parental supervision is advised. You may hear a little bit of meowing this morning. That's because Mr. Brahma Cat is a wee bit constipated and has had to get a little bit of olive oil in his food this morning. So if you hear those meows, apologies in advance. He's going to be okay, though. I got all of this suggested to me by a vet. All right, so where we left off last time. There would be very little room for tort liability, however, in the cases where a child's parents did in fact know and consent to the use of Aversives as part of their child's program. This is one of the biggest issues on the planet when it comes to our protection, folks. Because if you look at places like the JRC, and in particular, any of those schools that are part of the troubled teen industry, one of the biggest things that they wave in our face is the fact, well, your parents consented, so we can do whatever the hell we want to you. Because we got their signature and we got their consent. Okay? We've got a major problem here, folks. And that problem is it's this weird belief that parents will always make the best decisions in regards to their kids. It's this weird little fantasy. The reality is, even the very best of parents make mistakes when rearing kids because parents are human. Let's introduce a little bit more reality. We know for a fact, if you live in the real world, that not all parents should have been ever parents in the first place, and more than likely have made nothing but wrong choices in regards to their kids from time immemorial. And now let's get to the third point. The parents do not always know what the hell they're signing off on when they get to those consent forms. When it comes to putting your kids into a program, post or pre high school, you've got a massive load of paperwork you have to sign. They usually leave those consent papers towards the back. So by the time you get to them, you've already signed just about everything else that you barely touch on and read that particular consent form so that you know what it is in actuality that you're signing off on. Okay? Just to inject a little reality into it. This is also a situation where the idea of the parental rights and the rights of the school district are being respected, but the human rights of the disabled person or person with mental health issues are not. They're basically using that parental consent form to override the human rights of the disabled or mental health the person that has the mental health issues in question. That is part of the problem. And this is why we need the federal laws to get more specific in their language. Because very obviously, the very vague laws that we have in place that are supposed to protect us are not protecting us. Because places like JRC and like Agape can wave that consent form in everyone's face and say, see, it doesn't matter if we violate their human rights. It doesn't matter that we torture them and starve them because, see, here is mommy and daddy's signature. See what I mean? They usually follow that up to kind of soften the stance, as it were, by then flashing the letters behind their name to make them experts. Right? We heard it in the JD versus AH case. We must defer to the experts. Well, honey, I've been going after the JRC for far too long. I know what an appeal to authority is when I see one. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how many doctorates or letters behind your name that you have, you can still be wrong. Okay? And dead wrong at that. Because doctors, just like the rest of us, are predisposed to certain biases. Okay? They are not infallible, nor are they completely and utterly at all times objective. This is why medical malpractice suits exist. All right? The problem is, but the parents knew, so it's okay. No, it's not. If my parents consent, but the internationally accepted idea of what my human rights are as a human being are being violated, it shouldn't matter whether my parents consented to it or not. But here we are. So again, this is why we're trying to get those laws pushed through, why we're trying to get more specific in our language, because you can't just simply say we're protected when the laws are so vague. Okay? If you don't believe me, look at the fact that JRC is still running after it has the deaths of 6 kids under its belt. All right? In one case, Nicholson versus Freeport Union School District, a mother suing on the behalf of her son argued that the residential program that her son attended, the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, had used contingent skin shock and other adversives as part of his treatment in a way that was improper and unlawful. The court dismissed the lawsuit, finding that the plaintiff was estopped from raising this claim by virtue of his mother having earlier consented to the JRC's use of adversives. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. In cases like the JRC, they rush you. We know this from the interview with 4 moms. And when the moms can't be rushed, they go for intimidation and threatening of removing their guardianship over their own kid and placing it in the hands of the courts and doing it anyway. All right, this is why it is 100% extremely important that the parents know their rights. It's also important, in spite of signing papers fatigue, which I am unfortunately extremely familiar with, you have to read everything. You need to know what it is they're trying to force you to consent to before you put your autograph on that piece of paper. because no matter what they threaten you with, in that moment, you are the person with all the authority and all the power. And it's as exhausting as it is, your kids' mental health and physical health and well being depend upon you paying attention. All right. However, especially in cases involving alleged medical malpractice, NA program's use of aversives, a lack of informed consent may undermine this defense and, in fact, constitute an entirely different cause of action by itself. Exactly. What did we hear from Cheryl McCollins? That she had no idea what it was that she was signing off on. She had no idea exactly what she was signing off on. You'll hear that across the board from many parents who have since come to our side and have been the most vocal and strong allies against places like this. Okay? So, what are we learning before we jump off here? Because I want to make it short and sweet. Places like this, and places like Agape and the whole entirety of the troubled teen industry have gotten away with what they've gotten away with because of the tricks that they use, the intimidation when nothing else works, to get the parents to sign their consent off for these treatments to be administered to their kids. So we live in a world where parental rights and parental consent overrides the respect due to the person in question in regards to their human rights. This is why the federal protections that are there are not good enough. Remember, I told you before, a saying from my stepmom that your rights end when they begin to supersede mine. That's what we're talking about here, folks. It should not be a thing where my human rights should be able to be violated with absolute impunity, with no consequences for the individuals who are torturing said individual because a parent signed a consent form without really understanding what it was that they were signing. Now, although there's a vague protection here, and Shane just mentioned it, in regards to lack of informed consent, the actuality is places like the JRC prey on specific types of individuals. They go after people from poorer communities. In particular, they prey on people who come from poor communities of people of color. These are individuals who do not have unlimited funds to be able to go up against places like the JRC, who receive $285,000 a head every school year, who receive $87 million in federal funds to continue this insanity. That is the reality of it. You can sit there and say, but they have recourse to civil lawsuits all you want to. But if you're talking about the communities that they prey on, where are they going to find the funds, Karen? Okay? That means you are technically only protected if you've got the money to fight back. Which means that leaves a whole host of disabled kids completely vulnerable and unprotected. This is why we are pushing for those federal laws and why we are pushing for such specific information. Because the reality is the majority of us do not have access to unlimited funds to be able to fight people like the JRC. The other fact of the matter is we all know that civil lawsuits, whether you win or not, do nothing to change federal laws unless it is an extremely rare occurrence. We're going to go ahead and close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this morning. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you in a few minutes.